Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Bassi. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Rufai, and all our viewers out there. As always, nothing much to report on oil. Still pretty range-bound in the low 60s. In fact, it actually fell after Powell was talking about, increased inflation, outlook and negative sentiment. Then it picked up a little bit in the morning. So there you are, 61.21 for Brent. U.S. grade, North American grade, 58.22. Asian markets pretty much on the rise, except for the Nifty. I mean, you know what's going on in India with the whole attacks back and forth between India and Pakistan. So no surprise that there's negative sentiment on the Nifty 50 in India. But the rest of the markets, China through to South Korea, Australia, early trading this morning, they were on the up and up. As we know, the Federal Reserve did hold rates, but Powell did, just Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, did talk about the outlook, which is bearish. Some short clips on what he said. Here's one of them when he talked about holding rates steady.
In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
So we talked about sentiment, which has been deteriorating with respect to households and businesses. Here's that part of his speech.
Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the economic outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns.
And then he was asked again, if the Fed has to move, does it have the time to do that? Powell kept stressing that, look, we're patient, there's enough time, there's no downside to waiting simply because there's so much uncertainty on the fiscal side. This was during the Q&A with journalists.
As I said, we are comfortable with our policy stance. We think we're in the right place to wait and see how things evolve. We don't feel like we need to be in a hurry. We feel like it's appropriate to be patient. And when things develop, of course, we have a record of we can move quickly when that's appropriate. But we think right now the appropriate thing to do is to wait and see how things evolve. There's so much uncertainty. If you talk to businesses or market participants or forecasters, everyone is just waiting to see how developments play out. And then we'll be able to make a better assessment of what the appropriate path for monetary policy is. So we're not in that place, and as that develops, and I can't really give you a time frame on that.
To the U.S. and the U.K., Trump, I think he put something out on Truth Social a few days ago that there's a big announcement coming up on Thursday. So we understand that there's going to be a trade deal that will be announced. However, what I understand is that this trade deal was already being worked on during the first Trump administration, showing you how long it takes to get a trade deal done. Apparently, it's not supposed to have anything to do with reciprocal tariffs. Why? Because the U.S. has a trade surplus with the U.K. Remember, we gave you the numbers for Canada. I think they exported about, 79 billion to them in 2024, imported about 68 billion. So the U.S. has, as far as goods are concerned, a trade surplus to the tune of about 11 billion with the U.K. Also, the U.K. is one of the smaller trading partners with the U.S. So, the pound strengthened on the news, but then it now fell flat as people digested what was coming in. So we're not expecting to hear much, but we'll see what is announced. What the markets want to see is the trade deals with the big countries that the U.S. has deficits with, the Indias, the Vietnams, the Chinas of this world. Speaking of China, particularly chips, we also understand that Trump is planning to rescind some of the semiconductor curves, export curves that Biden put in place. He put that in place, for three reasons. One, for national security. This is Biden I'm referring to because they didn't want to have advanced chips going to the Chinese military to spy on the U.S. Two, for competitive economic advantage, and then three, for leverage. So it is understood that this might be an olive branch being extended ahead of the talks that are supposed to happen in Switzerland between China and the United States. I think it's in Geneva that's going to be taking place on Saturday. because he did, before this news came out, he then said that he's not going to take off any of the tariffs off the table. And the Chinese Commerce Ministry said that the tariffs had to be taken off the table before they can talk. So everyone is going to be looking forward to hearing what this has, this does. But I mean, if he takes off these curbs or modifies them, it still kind of does benefit China in the short run, because there's a two-horse race for artificial intelligence, and it's between the US and it's between China. To Nigeria, I mean, you already talked about the two tax bills that have been passed. But again, I just wanted to emphasize the corporate environment in Nigeria, particularly the businesses that will be paying these taxes. So very quickly, I won't spend too much time. VFD Group, just Q1 earnings, they're a proprietary investment firm that has investments. Yeah, and they did some pretty good, healthy. Look at pre-tax profit there, 35% up. EcoBank Tier 2, pre-tax profit up 32%, 267 assets, gross earnings all climbing. From there to, I think, manufacturing, CWG, which used to be Computer Warehouse Group, data infrastructure, software, hardware. You can see their pre-tax profits also climbing as well. I think to Fitson Healthcare, in the healthcare space, they of course have prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, 4.8 billion, 213% climb there. And I think finally Better Glass, they do manufacturing for soft drinks, for breweries, also for pharmaceuticals. You can see their pre-tax profits. So I mean, again, there's more stability in the currency. There's across the board, from manufacturing firms to financial firms to healthcare. You can see in the reflection of the results coming out in Nigeria that things are stabilizing compared to what we saw in the prior fiscal year. That's our updates for today.
I mean, so Trump again with all of his bluster and all of that. There's nothing really sensational about this so-called his new deal,
big trade deal coming today
with America. And in fact, there's nothing sensational about it in Britain. I'm sure that's why when they digested it, the market started falling again in the UK, because these were part of the things Britain was using them and saying, we're going to leave the EU, we're going to do independent deals and all of that.
Right.
Britain is going to be Singapore on Thames and all of that. What is the deal? Reduction of tariff, US cars, farm implements and all of that, and there's a reciprocation on the part of Britain to as regards that. So it's nothing substantial. I think one thing that is really substantial in all of this that we should also look at is this Pakistan crisis is affecting the Nifty 50.
Yeah.
And you know why I also say that? Because when you look at the Kashmir and Jammu region, there's a 10% portion of that land that belongs to China. I don't pray for it, but in an event, if China is brought into this, we don't want that kind of crisis at this point in time. We don't want this all-comers affair where everybody just fighting each other.
Do you remember when Trump said that there were no geopolitical flare-ups when he was in power, that everything happened under Biden?
You'll see everything.
And now we have a new...
Trump that did an AI picture of himself being the Pope.
And Russia is still attacking Ukraine.
So just,
very interesting.
Just don't worry about it. So as regards that. But Vimba and I put some clarity as regards that full payment of the IMF. I want your take on that full payment of the IMF. Because, yes, we can have cleared the legacy part of it, but there's some portions left there. And the DMO has not come and said anything. Even IMF has not raised a statement. So we want you, as the business impresario, to say something about that.
No, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to add to it? No, look. In due time, right? We need to hear from the horse's mouth,
That's
right?
the IMF.
That is the IMF.
So it's
fantastic. We don't want one side, right? So it is best to hear from both sides. The IMF will comment on it, and then we will get clarity. But don't forget, the IMF supports all countries. You've got loan extensions and so on and so forth. And Nigeria has not reached out to the IMF in a long time for funding of any kind. So, but we'll hear from them.
I'll be very brief. Number one, I have a bone to pick with Jerome Powell today. Nothing to do with holding rates and all of that, but with the revelation during the press briefing when he was taking questions, he said that he hasn't met with President Trump and he has no intention to meet with him,
right.
Which left a sour taste in my mouth, because ultimately, ideally, yes, we all have our biases, but he's supposed to be non-partisan.
Right.
Meeting with the president, yes, he's independent, but a meeting with the president is harmless. All past presidents have met.
No. So just to be clear, when the journalist asked him, he said that meetings with the Federal Reserve chair are initiated by the fiscal side. So it's not initiated by him. So he says he's never asked, and he never will.
And he never
so he's
will.
With any president. Remember, he came in during Obama appointed him.
And he met with Obama, yes.
Yeah, but he said he's never. Obama was the one that went to meet with him.
So he's waiting for an invitation.
And
then.
Also, when you look at how much President Trump has crossed the line, I mean, you can't be, the Federal Reserve is independent. You can't be telling them what to do as regards rates. He has crossed the line with many times. So I disagree with you on that.
Okay,
I still think they need to meet.
On these issues. Now, I think Jerome Powell should in fact be commended by insisting on the independence of the Federal Reserve. He said that, look, he does not meet with presidents and he has no intention and never will. Because he does not want to be influenced. In fact, he made it clear in that press conference that, look, the Federal Reserve does not listen to what the executive side is saying. They do their job based on hard data. That may well be a lesson for central bank governors elsewhere, and familiar territory, maybe Nigeria, if we want to be specific. Number two, he said they don't even advise Congress on fiscal policy. So the independence that he stated is important. But as to the general points that he made, they are holding rates. Because he says the effect of the high tariffs that President Trump is insisting upon will be higher inflation, will be unemployment, will be what you call stagflation. So those are the key things. Now, the market, surprisingly, of course, increased. Maybe because NVIDIA did well, so you had Dow Jones Industrial Average jumping by 0.10%. Now, to talk about the deal, the U.S. says that they are having deals with about 70 countries. They categorize those countries into three. In fact, Britain was supposed to be in the third category. So it is good news to some people that now, President Trump says he will talk to the UK and that there's going to be a deal. However, he did not provide details. The devil is in the details. When we know those details, we will know the extent. But you are right that Britain has a trade deficit with the United States. And the tariffs, just the basic 10% that they have to worry about. Now, what is the other subject you brought up?
The chips.
China. Let me talk about China. Now, China and the US, they are supposed to meet. Scott Bessent is going for a meeting in Switzerland. But President Trump is saying, well, he is not planning to reduce the 145%. He's contradicting himself.
Exactly.
The other time he said, okay, maybe we'll reduce from 145, but it won't be as high as that. Now he says no.
I won't remove it.
So putting pressure ahead of the meeting on China.
And uncertainty for markets, doctor. One minute you're saying you reduce, one minute you won't reduce. This is part of what you've talked about.
Uncertainty is the main thing. In any case, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As for India, their negotiations may be on hold now that they have another problem to worry about. Thank you, Rotus.